Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the financial DNA of chemical companies, and specifically, how they account for that DNA using SASB standards. We are going to explore how sustainability reporting has really moved way past those simple, vague statements of intent and into hard, audited financial figures.
So how do we actually measure product sustainability in dollars? It's a fascinating question, right? Because sustainability isn't just about measuring a carbon footprint or water usage at some manufacturing plant anymore. For the chemicals industry, true sustainability reporting is about tracking exactly where a company's revenue comes from. When an investor or an analyst looks at a chemical manufacturer, they absolutely need to know how much money is being made from products that solve tomorrow's problems versus products that might face heavy regulatory bans or taxes. And we measure that exposure in dollars.
To figure that out, we're going to look at the ESG revenue lens, use phase resource efficiency, managing hazardous chemicals, the GMO revenue slice, and wrap it all up with transparency as strategy.
Starting off with Section 1, the ESG revenue lens, which is really just about following the money.
Moving right into Section 2, use phase resource efficiency, or what we like to call the good slice.
Let's look at our first metric from the SASB standard, which is RT-CH410A1. What's super interesting here is the specific definition of the term use phase. It's entirely about the benefits unlocked when the final product is actually put to work by the customer or consumer. We aren't talking about the chemical companies saving energy in their own factories. We're talking about designing a product that helps their customers save energy, eliminate greenhouse gas emissions, or drastically reduce water consumption.
Now, a company can't just guess or use some clever marketing to claim a product is efficient. They have to follow a very strict checklist to prove their product actually moves the needle. The standard dictates that the increase in efficiency must be explicitly tested or modeled. Furthermore, it has to be a meaningful, incremental improvement. A chemical company cannot claim this revenue slice for a conventional product that's just, marginally lighter than the last generation. The standard strictly excludes ancillary or minimal improvements specifically to prevent greenwashing.
To give you some context, here are a few specific examples from the source material. We're looking at real-world innovations here. Things like polymers that replace heavy metals in cars to improve fuel economy, high albedo paints that reflect heat and reduce air conditioning needs, or the essential materials used to manufacture solar films and biofuels.
If you picture three pie charts side by side representing different product revenue splits, this would be our first pie chart. Visualizing this as a slice of total revenue, a growing slice here is a massive positive indicator. It signals that a company is successfully innovating and capturing market demand for sustainable solutions. As global resource scarcity increases, chemical companies providing these efficiency solutions are setting themselves up for way stronger competitive advantages and market share growth.
All right, on to Section 3, managing hazardous chemicals, also known as the risky slice. Our second metric, RTH410B.1, shifts our focus from opportunity straight into risk management. In our second pie chart, we're isolating the revenue generated from products containing chemicals that trigger high-level hazard classifications. For investors, this right here represents a major pocket of potential financial exposure. Products with these characteristics can face sudden regulatory bans, shifting customer preferences, or really high mitigation expenses.
To be incredibly precise, the SASB standard relies on the globally harmonized system of classification and labeling of chemicals, or GHS for short, and we're focusing purely on Category 1 and Category 2 hazards. We aren't talking about a mild skin irritant here. These categories cover severe risk traits. Think acute toxicity, known carcinogens, reproductive toxicity, or chemicals that pose severe chronic hazards to the aquatic environment and the ozone layer.
But just having hazardous chemicals in a portfolio isn't the whole story. The chemical industry often absolutely needs to produce volatile or hazardous materials to serve essential industrial functions. Because of that, the metric also requires companies to disclose the percentage of these specific products that have undergone a rigorous hazard assessment. An assessment proves the company isn't just blindly selling a dangerous chemical. They are actively identifying and documenting the necessary safety measures so that the product can be handled and used safely.
So the standard demands a two-step disclosure. First, the company has to divide the revenue from their GHS Category 1 and 2 products by their total overall revenue. That gives you the total hazard exposure. Then, step 2. They must calculate what percentage of that specific hazardous revenue has actually undergone a complete hazard assessment. This shows exactly how much of their high-risk portfolio is actively being risk managed.
Next up, Section 4, the GMO revenue slice, or the complex slice.
This brings us to metric RTCH410C.1 and our third pie chart. This one isolates the revenue share coming directly from products containing genetically modified organisms. This represents a segment of the business that is just full of massive global demand, but simultaneously faces intense regulatory scrutiny.
It is super important to look at the strict legal definition provided by the standard to understand exactly what qualifies for this revenue slice. We are looking at organisms, excluding humans of course, where the genetic material has been altered in ways that do not occur naturally through traditional mating or natural recombination.
We report on this entirely neutrally because GMOs genuinely present a complex balancing act. On the opportunity side, agricultural biotechnology provides some vital benefits: dramatically improved yields for crops like corn and soy, increased resistance to pests, and improved drought tolerance, which is getting more critical every year. However, on the risk side, entities face severe potential roadblocks. Things like regional regulatory bans, strict quotas, mandatory labeling requirements, and significant public perception concerns. By measuring this exact revenue slice, stakeholders can weigh the immense financial upside against those very real regulatory vulnerabilities.
Finally, Section 5, transparency as strategy.
Let's bring all three of these metrics together. The math across these disclosures is actually beautifully simple, yet it's deeply revealing. To perform these revenue-based calculations for product-level ESG metrics, you always use the total revenue from all products as your denominator. Your numerator is just the specific slice you're analyzing: revenue from use-phase-efficient products, revenue from GHS hazard chemicals, or revenue from GMOs. Applying this simple formula across those three pie charts we've discussed today allows you to transition from vague sustainability promises to hard, concrete financial ratios.
And the reason this matters so much is that it completely bypasses greenwashing. It grounds a company's ESG profile directly in their audited financial realities. It literally forces chemical companies to translate chemical properties, like toxicity or energy efficiency, into financial terminology that the market can actually price. It quantifies exact exposure to future regulatory risks, while simultaneously highlighting how fast a company is transitioning its portfolio to capture brand new, sustainable market opportunities. So I'll leave you with this thought to ponder. When you finally see the true audited breakdown of a chemical company's revenue pie, separating those efficient innovations from the hazardous and complex materials, how clearly can you see their future? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the financial DNA of the chemical industry right here on The Explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.